Citizens of the world, welcome back to another Keep Yours podcast where we try and keep a few more dollars in your wallet so you can spend it on the things that you like to. Today we are talking about changes in FICO score, and here's the big question. Is this change going to cost you money? Is it going to make your interest rates go up? Is it going to make it so that your credit score goes down and now you can't get approved for the loans that you want to? Or if you can get approved for the loans, then you're paying a higher interest rate. So today we're going to look at these things so that you can work on your credit score and you can improve it so that you can get the loans that you want at the rates that you want to get. So today we're going to go over briefly what the FICO score includes, what the changes are, how those might affect you, and what we expect that to do with scores overall. So let's get right into it. Currently, what is your score made from? That is question number one. And your score is made up of 5 basic components. Payment history is going to be the biggest one. And that basically means, do you pay your bills on time, in full, every month? Not did you pay off your whole balance, but did you pay that minimum payment every month? Did you not miss a payment? Missing payments is viewed very negatively. In a sense, your credit score is just a trust relationship between you and the entire financial market. Because every bank can't know you. Every person issuing credit to you can't know you. So how do they decide whether or not they want to give you credit and do a transaction with you? Well, they look at what other people has collected as your credit history. That's what your credit report is. So are you paying your accounts on time when you say you're going to? Are you a person of your word? That's the main factor. The second piece is how much you owe. So obviously, even if you pay your bills on time, if you owe too much, that's going to be a problem. So how do they look at how much you owe? Well, they look at how much money you make, potentially. They don't really look at the income dollar per se. They look at how much credit you have available. So if you have 10 credit cards and they each have a $1,000 limit, then you have $10,000 of credit. And then they look at how much credit are you using. So if you've used one of those credit cards and it's maxed out at $1,000, but that's the only one you've used 10% of your credit available. So the amount owed versus the amount you have available is a big part of your score. The next piece is length of credit history. So how long have you been doing this? i.e., how long have we been doing transactions equals an increase in trust. So if I've been conducting transactions for 30 years and you've been doing it for 5 years and I've made every payment for 30 years, that counts more than every payment for 5 years. Now again, that's only 15% of your score, and having accounts that you have paid off does help. So if you're new to establishing credit, the game is basically start doing it sooner than later. New credit is a 10% piece. I see here. So new credit is what are you getting right now? What have you gone and asked for? Are you asking for a new car loan? Did you ask for one in the last year or two? Are you refinancing into something that you've already bought? Are you looking for new credit cards? And if you're out searching for credit, then that can negatively affect your credit score. Now, if you're doing a one-off transaction, if you're buying a home, when you're buying a home and people are doing credit inquiries, multiple credit inquiries aren't going to hurt your score for the one piece of credit that you do get. And typically when you do get that home loan, it will negatively affect your score, but not because of the new credit piece so much. More so what it will be is the amount owed. So if you get a brand new loan for a house, well, the amount that you owe on it is the whole piece. So if your loan is $200,000, you owe $200,000. So it's 100%. So when we were just talking about the mix of a credit card versus all of them, so if I have 1,000 balance and 10,000 available, I'm using 10%. Now all of a sudden, if on a home loan, I'm at 100% until I make some payments. So that's going to negatively affect your score right after the loan closes. Many people are confused by this. I bought a house. I now have an asset. I put 20% down. I got a loan. Why did my credit score go down? Credit score went down because the amount you owe is 100% of the amount you borrowed. And so as a percentage of your total credit available to what's being used, that ratio just changed. Now, they don't hurt you as much on a house as they might on a car, especially if you don't put a down payment on the car. And there are different pieces. So the last piece is your credit mix. So if you have more things that have been going on, You have a credit card that you pay. You have a loan payment that you've made. You have a car payment that you've made. You got a house payment that you've made. Different types of credit. Those different types help increase your score because it's basically saying to the financial world, I've got experience dealing with a home loan and making that payment, dealing with a car loan and making that payment, dealing with potentially a student loan and making that payment, dealing with credit cards and making those payments. And you're basically saying, hey, I've got a diverse set of things here that I'm used to doing in the financial world. So your credit score goes up because the likelihood that the next piece of credit that you get, the likelihood that you will pay that back also goes up. And that is what your credit score is really supposed to be indicative of. It's supposed to be indicative of, am I going to be able to repay this loan in time, in full, on time? And if you can do those things, then your credit score goes up and more people want to do business with you because you're honest in dealing with them and making your payments and you're less risk. And that is exactly what your credit thing is supposed to determine, is your risk. So they're changing the score. First, we can ask the question, why are they changing the score? Well, perhaps it's because it's actually going to be a more beneficial score in terms of addressing risk. Or perhaps FICO just needs another thing to sell people. So realize FICO is not necessarily your total credit score. So each of the three big companies that we deal with, TransUnion, Experian, they pull this information from FICO. So FICO is a separate company that combines all of this information for you and sells it to them. That doesn't mean it's the only place they're getting information. It doesn't mean 100% of your score is based off of that. However, it is a core component. So FICO is its own company that basically sells this package of information on you to the reporting agencies that then use that, and different people that you're going to request credit from go to particularly different agencies and get a different score. That's addressed in another podcast. Today we're just talking about changes in FICO score. If you want to learn all about your credit, we've got a different one for you for that, and a new one coming out soon that's an abbreviated version that'll also be on YouTube. So what are the changes in FICO score that we're actually talking about today? The first one is trending data. What does trending data mean? It basically means that FICO is now going and looking at the last 24 months of your loan history. And then typically before it just said, what's last month? And just took a snapshot of last month. Now it's going to go back and look at 2 years and look at all the credit that you've used in the past 2 years and what you've done with it. And the idea behind that is it'll give a better picture of the way in which you're using credit, and therefore whether or not you're playing games or if you have these patterns which actually show up. So, for example, we use credit cards for my business all the time. So when we have work where people have to go out on the road, they obviously have a lot more expenses, so the credit card balances will rise. And then at the end of the month, we'll pay off that balance, and then hopefully within a month or two, our customer pays us, and this is how the money flows. So if we have a month where we have a lot of service work, then potentially the credit card balance rises significantly. It might be double or triple what it might have been the prior month for all of these expenses. So how do we deal with that? Well, previously, every month when those balances would go up, my credit score would go down because the amount of credit I'm using versus the amount of credit available, I'm using more now, despite the fact that it gets paid off every month. So if you're someone who pays off your balance every month, all of a sudden, regardless of the amount that you run up on it, and it's not totally regardless, but we're just going to say that for easy discussion, what you've done over the last 24 months now gets shown. So if you run up balances but pay them off every month, those aren't going to count as negatively against you as they would in the past. And vice versa is true. If you have accounts where you're not paying off the balance, now all of a sudden those will hurt you more instead. So balances, minimum payments, most recent payments. So let's say you are holding a balance on a credit card and you are paying it off. Now what it's going to look at is, are you just paying the minimum payment, or are you trying to get ahead of this? Are you trying to make additional payments and pay down that credit? i.e., I've borrowed more than I can afford right now. Now I'm paying that back. Or are you just out there getting more and more credit? And if you're getting more and more credit, guess what? It's going to count negatively against you. Or if you're just increasing your credit available, so that the increase in credit you're using, your percentage stays the same. You used to be able to kind of game the system if you understood it. Hey, let me call one company before I go make this purchase, increase my credit limit on one that I'm not even going to use, or potentially the one I'm going to use, either way. And now I have, instead of 10,000 credit available, I've got 15,000 available. So now if I go use, before I was at 1,000 and 10%, now I can go buy something for $500 and I'm at 1,500 and I'm still at 10%. My ratio stayed the same, so my credit score doesn't get dinged, but meanwhile, I owe more money. So this is a reason why it could possibly be changed. That makes sense, is that it's hard to track what people actually owe and how they're using money. So this trended data is going to give the credit bureaus a better picture of how you're using credit and whether or not you're paying off balances or you're moving money around or whatever it is you're doing. It's going to give them a look into it. And this is what I was talking about before. Do you pay off your balance every month? So if that's true, you're now a transactor. And as a transactor, you're just using credit cards, let's just say because you're a travel hacker and you want the points, or you just want the points in general. I view credit cards as a 2% discount. I pay off the balance each month. So I'm a transactor, not a revolver. I'm not holding balances. So now if you're holding balances and using more and more of your credit available, your credit score is going to go down. Versus if you're just a transactor and you're buying and paying every month, your credit score is going to go up because you're not really using the credit in terms of, I need more money. You're just using the credit in terms of, it makes it easier to just buy it on a credit card. So I think they're trying to address that with this trended data, but I think more what they're looking at, I think the upside, if you're doing well and doing the transactor, is going to be a lot less than the downside. Now, I don't know for certain how FICO's weighing these pieces, but I'm saying that if I'm the one giving you credit, if I'm deciding who gets credit and what their credit score should be, if I see that you are using revolving and I'm looking at your balances and minimum payments, and if you're just making minimum payments and gaming the system, I would think that the downside is going to be a lot more. So for those of us holding balances and using credit cards as a revolving account, as in every month there's still a balance, I have a feeling your credit score is going to go down a lot more than those who don't carry balances and pay it off every month. Delinquencies. So one of the things that they changed over the past few years was it used to be your credit card payment was due 30 days after they closed the statement. And if you didn't pay on that date, that immediately got reported. So they stopped doing this a while back, and basically what they give you is you missed a payment, we're going to charge you $50, but that first missed payment isn't considered delinquent. It's just considered you forgot. And now you basically need to go 60 days and not pay by the end of the next payment, and then it's delinquent. So as soon as it hits that 60 days and you don't pay, that's going to really hurt a lot more. So the idea here is, are you staying current all the time? And if you're not, then this is indicative of your lack of ability to use credit wisely, which means that your credit score should get hurt. If we look at the purpose of this, if the purpose of the credit score is to determine who's going to repay their loans and who's not, this is very important. So staying current, always paying your bills. Again, if we go back to slide 1, we can see that this payment history is worth 35%. So all of a sudden, the weight in that payment history of a missed payment is going to be a lot bigger. And that's what they're telling us. So they're saying, look, if you miss a payment, that's going to hurt you a lot more than it did in the past because we've already built in this sort of extra month to make a payment. So now if you're not on time, it's a bigger concern. So the next thing that they changed is how credit card debt works. And the more credit card debt you're using, the lower your score is going to be. And the main reason for this is the higher your credit card as a percentage of your total debt, credit cards typically carry the highest interest rates. So if the credit you use the most has the highest interest rates, and you're not a transactor, you're a revolver. So now I'm using credit card, basically credit, as my way to, let's just say, live. Right? I know a lot of people that did this for years after they got laid off in 2008, 2009. They just decided, I'll live on my credit cards for a while. And so their credit card balances are going up every month. Well, if they have a total credit available, like let's say they've got a home equity line of credit they're not using, or if you've got other types of credit and you're using your credit cards more, your risk of default is going to be more because your interest rate is going to be higher. So if you're using more and more credit as debt, your score is going to go down. Utilization. Again, we talked about this, the amount of credit you're using versus the amount available. So one mistake that I see people do all the time is they pay off a credit card, and that's great, and then they go, I want it out of my life, and they close the account. And that hurts your credit score because now whatever other credit you do, you just change that ratio. So if you had 10 credit cards at $1,000 each, you had $10,000 in credit. You were using $1,000. If you were using $1,000, you paid it off, great. Now all of a sudden your usage ratios goes down. But let's say you didn't pay it, you paid off a different one. Let's say you had $900 balance on one credit card, $100 on your second credit card. Paid off the $100 and then you canceled that account. Now you have $900, but you just got rid of that card. So you just shrunk. So now your usage is the same ratio. Your credit score is not going to get any better. And if you do the opposite, let's say that one was worth $5,000 of your credit instead of $1, and you just canceled it. Well, now you just canceled half your credit. Your utilization rate just went from 10% to 20 or 30%. That's going to reduce your credit score. So be careful about closing accounts. Typically, my recommendation is the longer account's been open, that gets weight in terms of you want to leave that one open. And the other thing you want to do, if you're going to close credit cards, if you're just trying to simplify your life, then the ones that you still have open, even if you're not going to use it, and I don't recommend you use it, but ask them to increase the balance. That'll help. The next piece that they've really addressed is personal loans. And the reason they've addressed personal loans is because everyone's going out to get a personal loan to take their credit card debt and transfer it. And now that this has become common practice, and in fact, the amount of loans has gone up astronomically. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right now, but the amount of this happening is huge. And it's a good thing for consumers if you're consolidating your debt and you're able to then repay the loan because it has a lower interest rate than your credit card would be. That's absolutely outstanding in terms of what you're trying to get to. But here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, we're not going to penalize you when you move this credit card debt over to a personal loan debt. The amount of credit you're using is the same, right? You still owe the same, but if you go use your credit card again and your credit card balance starts going up and it's not a transactor account, it's now a revolver account where you're using that and carrying a balance every month, and you have the personal loan on the side, your credit score is going to go way down because now you're playing the system. You're gaming it again. So in the exact same way that I said people were gaming the system before with increasing the amount of credit card debt they had, but also increasing the credit they had available to keep their scores high, they're addressing this as well in the personal loans aspect of it. So if you get a personal loan to pay off your credit cards, they expect you to pay that down and not run up your credit cards again. If you do that, your credit score is going to go down a bunch. So these are the 4 things that they're really changing. This is the change in FICO score. Now, how do they expect that that's going to affect us all? Well, we hope that they're right, but this is what they're saying. Higher scores are going to get higher. If you pay your bills on time, you don't carry debt, your score is going to rise. So specifically, the transactor accounts, the people who are just using a credit card every month to make it easy to buy things and then pay it off, your credit score should go up from that. If your score is low, it's probably going to go lower. So all of a sudden, if you're using too much credit, if you're carrying those revolving balances every month, if you're only making minimum payments, if the trend, and this is what the trending data is, the trending data idea is that we can then see the trends in the way that you use credit. So if you're trending towards having no debt and paying it all off, your credit score goes up. If you're trending towards using revolving credit and not paying down your debt, your score is going to go down. Boost programs that use your cell phone data, utility bill payments, those are still going to work. If you have poor credit and you're trying to improve it, another way might be rental karma if the people you rent from will report your rental payments as being on time. So moving debt and using personal loans is no longer going to help your score. That's what you need to know. FICO scores are changing. these are the ways they're changing. These are the things that'll help you to prevent you from having to pay more in interest if your credit score is going down. So know the rules, do what you can to save yourself money. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.